Yeah, that was people were tired of getting the worst jobs, having uh, basically lies about our history, and being ignored and so forth. We wanted Chicano studies. We wanted uh, more of a voice, and Berets became active. Berets got a lot of blame for it. I mean, it was a good thing we were doing it, but we were, I think, seen as outside agitators. They had to blame somebody, and why not blame young Chicanos who were trying to do some good? Um, a lot of the organizing from that went on to the Chicano Morion too, and again, I'd like to say the Berets were helpful and supportive, but it was community organizing which really put those off or put those things into place. Um, like I say, Ruben Salazar was murdered there, and there was at the Chicano Moratorium, and also Gustav Montag, East LA college student, was murdered that day at the Chicano Moratorium. And, we've got the 50th anniversary coming up this year, August 29th, and I don't know if it's going to come off now. I mean, with social distancing, it's hard to believe any large event is going to come off.
By that time now, I don't think so. I doubt it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So there's a moratorium. You have Sal Castro.
yeah,
FBI coming in, trying to spy on students. Um,
yeah, yeah.
that leads into the moratorium. Uh, can you talk about like what activism or did you get involved in? What organized did you get involved in post moratorium? I mean, like we think things are one way. It's gonna
Sure.
organize. We're gonna change the world. We try to have a march and they kill us. So
Yeah, yeah,
what's the new consciousness that developed after post moratorium?
yeah. That's really accurate. I mean, in the sense of we thought at the time we thought we were going to change the world by that, right? Some people had died, but there was a lot of organizing going on, and it kind of matches up with things up here in the sense of getting a taste of justice, a small bite of justice for Oscar Grant made us think that, well, now we're going to, things are going to change. And the pigs cracked down COINTELPRO, the counterintelligence program, where they basically um, did everything they could to disrupt, to jail, to turn us against each other. Of course, they did it to the Panthers as well. They worse for the Panthers. They murdered Fred Hampton. They murdered Mark Clark. So many martyrs, and I guess all of that caused maybe some of the organizing just fell apart. Fear of yeah, fear of dying, fear of getting killed by the pigs. I can't really say for sure, but it seems like whenever you see there's hope,
Mm-hmm.
we get dragged back down again.
Yeah. One of the things is I noticed is that there's also, in addition to the oppression, there's also this kind of thing of forgetting. There's always this thing of forgetting. Like so,
Yeah, yeah,
talk about these martyrs, that died at the moratorium. That those are well known. Recently, we
yeah,
had someone on from Colorado, and they were talking about Los Yes, the boulder, right?
yeah, yeah.
People forget that, like, 6 people died for ethnic studies. I mean, like, why do you think
Yes,
it is that why do you think it is? Because definitely can't be cultural. Because we have, Dia los Muertos, we're always like having our stuff.
sure.
Like so,
That,
remember
that that's a
no, that's something
that's
we
a
celebrate.
good
But
that's a good
the
question,
regular
man.
martyrs historically, or political martyrs, are very forgotten. It's like,
Yeah, yeah. And when you think back on it, you're right. I mean, our history has been martyrs. I mean, Cuauhtemoc.
mhm.
You know, we there's the calendars with Cuauhtemoc in every taqueria in East Los Angeles.
Yeah,
We I gotta say just as the berets, even though I wasn't a beret at the time, when we started out, we did a lot of good, but we also ignored las mujeres. You know, Gloria Arellanes and a lot of the women berets left en masse because of the fact that the men were sidelining them, marginalizing them, and mistreating them. We were misogynistic, and it's something which is we have, as berets, addressed it in a sense. It's better than it was. Um, Maybe we can even say a lot better, but it's something that needs to be understood. There's still misogynism within our ranks, and I think what people sometimes I've heard people say, well, the berets were misogynistic. No, you are what your people are. You are what your people, what's you draw from a certain base. And unfortunately, in our people, we're misogynism, domestic violence, those things have been in our history and they still exist and need to be addressed.
Yeah, most definitely. I'm kind of curious though. When you were out there around that time, what role did culture play at the time? Like, what kind of like like the music, the poetry, the whatever? How integral was that to the movement of the time?
It, it meant a lot. It was funny. I remember this is going to sound kind of crazy, but when Santana came out with Evil Ways and No Tengo Nadie and all of their great hits, it hit us, man. It was like, damn, here's this a Chicano band. The music was so great, and it's funny. Nobody in my family had ever been north of Oxnard, so I I, I remember telling people, "Wait, there's Mexicans in San Francisco? Really? I didn't know that. But there were some trippy things too. There was like Osco. Osco was a group that did kind of some things kind of like Teatro Campesino. Uh, a lot of our people. I had one disagreement with a lot of Chicanos in the berets, and that was the acknowledgement of our white side. Uh, as great as José Joaquin was, there's also that thing about I am the Aztec warrior, I am the Spanish horseman, or something like that. I can't remember exactly. Yeah, and what that made me think of, you would never hear the AIM people say, I am a Lakota warrior and I am the Irish frontiersman, right? You wouldn't hear the Panthers say, I am the Zulu warrior and I am the Dutch slave trader. But we were saying, I am the Spaniard, really, the I am the rapist. That's what we were saying. So to me, that was the one disagreement I had with a lot of Chicanos. We should never have embraced anything European. Uh, Many of us are detribalized, so we reached out to Nahuatl language and so forth, and the Aztecs, but at least that's indigenous. So that was, I think our culture did play a great part, though, anyway, and it should be the major part.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean that kind of points to a larger question. Though, if you look at like, I think if you look at like kind of the way things were, the way Western European invasion of the
Mm-hmm.
continent takes place, wherein it was English, and Dutch, and these areas, they tended to be more of a kill them all, destroy
Mm-hmm.
everything,
Yeah.
warpath kind of thing. Whereas the Spaniards, there's it's terrible, it's horrible. I mean, I'm not saying that, but it was slightly different in that it was
Yeah.
this idea of a new people, mestizaje. It was kind of like this casta system, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
That's
in
true.
the United States, you have a situation where people who clearly clearly have European ancestry, as you and I clearly have some
Yeah.
European ancestry, right?
Yep. Yep.
Um, but the culture is different, so there's no like I am the Dutch slave master and the African slave. There's no I am the
Yeah.
Lakota and the
Yeah.
Irish frontiersman. I am
Yeah.
because
Yeah. Yeah.
the Anglo culture is just like no, you're not. No, 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 right? Whereas the Spanish culture is more.
That's true.
I'm not saying it's worse. I'm not saying it's better or worse.
Yeah.
What I would say is it's more confusing. You're welcomed into a level of
Yeah.
confusion that you remain your entire you remain your
Yeah.
entire
Yeah.
life. For
That
the
that's
most
that's a
part, you
good
remain
way
your
to put it.
entire life.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. The Anglos wanted to exterminate us. They saw us as wild animals, and we were something to be cleared out so that they could expand slavery.
And and also you look at when you look at the United States, you have people who would go into like slave in the case of slavery, they would go into the quarters of these enslaved people, and they would rape them and have children with them, and they would sell their own children into slavery. I mean, that's a level of depravity. I'm not saying the Spanish wasn't depraved as well, but I'm saying
Yeah,
that
yeah.
the what happened here in North America is just it's different. I mean, that's not a
Mm,
caste system. That's like I'm saying that the one drop rule
mhm.
is not the caste system. I think the caste system is much more confusing. It's much more like who am
Yeah,
I
yeah.
kind of stuff. But I think it's left us with this web. So even like Corky Gonzalez writes, I am
Mhm.
the Spanish, right? He's very much coming out of a very Mexican experience, a very the embrace, as they say.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, man. I can't disagree with that. Um, and a lot of it too was here. We um, because of the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, uh, the Mexicans here were considered citizens, and I guess white by the white people's standards, even though it was all bullshit. But the native people here, in a sense, sought refuge among the Mexicanos and Chicanos because of the fact that at at least there was some safety there, whereas the natives were considered somebody to kill, somebody to rape, that the children could literally be taken to uh, raise as slaves. Women could be raped, men could be killed for sport. So they, in a sense, sought refuge among our people. Well, actually, I have Kumeyaay and Yuma blood from my father, so I think, in a sense, that's probably why my family is really. Uh, we don't have a deep Mexicano background. It's more really just Chicano. I don't have, like, for instance, we never sang Las Mañanitas, you know, but we all had lowriders. So,
Yeah,
go figure.
that,
And I
that,
can speak
that,
horrible Spanish, horrible Pocho Spanish with the best of them.
yeah, yeah. Speak horrible broken Spanish with the best and the worst kinds of people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have some questions from the audience. Alexandria Gurley says, "Do you think the passion or action is diminished over generations? Do you think the passion or the action diminished over generations or both?"
Wait, could you say that one more time, Matt,
So
please?
I think he's asking, is this generation less passionate, and do they take less action than
Oh,
previous?
that's a great question. Oh man. Oh, I wish I could say it's more. It's definitely at least as passionate as we were. As I remember, coming up, I think people have a tendency to look back and say, "Man, back in our day," you know, But the fact is, uh, I think the younger people are, if nothing else, uh, better informed these days, and a lot of that may be due to the internet, possibly. But I see a lot of hope for the younger generation, uh, along with mujeres leading us, or taking more of the lead. We see black and brown working together more than we did in my day too. So that's a great question. I think the young people these days are a little bit ahead of us. I'm not going to say way ahead of us, but I think they're a little ahead of us. And I'm thinking it bodes well for the future if we can continue to spread the seeds.
Yeah, no, I agree with that too. I mean, fantastic. I think that, like, I think there's periods where things dip. When there's not much going on. But I mean, I think when I think about like the last between like the 1960s and now, you have like 2006 with a huge
Yeah,
walkout. You have the response to Prop 187 was huge. You have that. I mean, and that's just with us. I mean, in other situations, you have the black community. You have the 92 rebellion. I mean, there's a lot of things that happened, worthy of note after after the 60s and 70s, which were kind of like taught, especially if
yeah.
you especially if you were born in the 80s and 90s, that was the time when things happened, and now people just suck. Like we don't do anything. We're not like them, but that was when radical. But I feel like that's like a Madison Avenue propaganda kind of thing. I feel like
I
they
really
associate
do.
they associate it with the Vietnam War, right? And then like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah,
we lost. Now we win wars again. Look at Iraq, Lewis. Now people are things are back to normal, kind of.
yeah. It's true. It's um, maybe there were some more iconic things, like for instance the Panthers. Very iconic. It's just you see, Huey Newton in that share picture. You see them uh, armed at the state capitol. But people are doing great things these days too. So yeah, I think we are even more effective now, and I think the fact that there's more solidarity here, and I'd like to say too, when we work in solidarity, it should never be a transactional thing. Like either way. In other words, okay, we'll be there for the Malcolm X rally and the King March, but you guys got to be there for the Cesar Chavez March, or vice versa. However you look at it, it shouldn't be that. It should just be. It's nice for young black people to see black and brown together. It's good for young Chicanos to see black and brown together, Native together, Asian people together, and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you spread seeds. It's the right thing to do. Whether it bears fruit long term.
Yeah, yeah. Another question we have, it says, is this not still going on with Jeffrey Epstein that your children are used? I think this is, yeah, there you go. It's a link back. This is where our conversation has progressed. So like this, she was talking about, I think she's making reference to when we're talking about slavery and the slave drivers, and their exploitation of children. I mean, do not
Yeah,
still see that today. Yeah.
yeah. Oh, yeah, that scumbag Epstein.
Yeah.
Yeah, still continuing, and it, it's something when you think about, I mean, how awful it is for domestic violence right now, in the sense of people being sheltered in place, so there's no um, break for the victims of domestic violence. There's my daughter had mentioned to me she was in a domestic violence situation, and she heard an NPA uh, program on it, the prevalence during shelter in place, and
Yeah.
how she thought, man, if she had a really, she came home really upset because she was thinking what kept me sane was the fact that he would be away at times. That gave her a chance to make a phone call or something. And now when somebody's trapped, and then what do you do? And then pigs don't give a damn about domestic violence at all. They won't do shit. But then again, uh, they do it themselves.
Right. 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 That means she's. Yeah. We have a question from the last one about from Jesse, who asked why you're still loyal to the Dodgers.
Yeah, for real, for what they did to Chavez Ravine, I should hate them, but I think it's kind of like I think it's in the DNA somehow too. There's, I suspect that maybe there, I don't know, a Valenzuela gene or something. Yeah, I still, I mean, even though I got this, I still support Dodger stuff, man. Yeah, never gonna reform.
We all have our vices.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, yeah. So, I mean, it's been a great conversation. So, I
yeah,
want to talk a little bit about the question that you're involved in the Rays and various other things, that are kind of like they have political structures. They're kind of political parties. Why do you think it's important to give your energy to a party outside of the major two political parties, the duopoly, as
yeah,
some.
yeah. It's a good question. To me, it's like this. I don't know if this makes a lot of sense. It seems like the only ones who make any difference voting that the two parties look at is the white vote. In other words, the Republican Party is set up as the white party. It's a racist political party. Um, the Democrats, uh, at one time, they probably could have been seen as a lesser evil, but with triangulation, they're basically the same thing. There's very little difference between the two parties. Uh, the brown and black vote goes to the Democrats. That's, it's most of us have maybe a crazy Theo, a crazy coworker, a neighbor who's Chicano who is a Trump supporter, but basically they get the black and brown vote and they don't have to do anything. They just basically just don't be a Republican. And they know that. They don't have to say, well, we don't withhold our vote because it's seen as it's only two parties. We can't go to the Republicans, and if we don't vote, it's going to be the Republicans. And even though we get the same shit, I mean, it's like you have an a failed entrepreneur game show host who is president in large part because the Democrats ran a war criminal who was unelectable, and now they didn't really learn anything, and now they got Joe Biden there, and vote blue no matter who. I mean, not that anybody listens to me. People are going to do whatever they want, but I think if you are going to believe that voting does something constructive, um, you should vote third party.
Yeah.
Um, Locally it works. I mean, in Oakland, I think we tried to run Cat Brooks for mayor, and she was going to defund OPD. That was one of her uh, major parts of her platform. So things can be done locally, and I think on a national basis, we should, if you're going to vote third party.
Didn't the Green Party elect somebody in Richmond?
Yeah, but I forget the details of that. I heard they did though.
Yeah. Okay. So then a lot of people were energized by the Bernie Sanders campaign, but you know with this kind of talks of universal health care,
Yeah,
and all these things that weren't being offered by the other candidate. Um, but but again, it was very clear that the people who were in charge of the party structure were really favoring the other candidates.
right.
And once he lost, he immediately, or once he decided to bow out, anyways, he immediately full throatedly endorsed Joe Biden. So, what can be said about this Bernie Sanders?
You know, I would say he was a true lesser evil. He was as imperialist as any other Democrat or Republican, but he did speak in favor of not only Medicare for all, but I believe abolishing the student debt. And I think he might have even said some things about the what do you call it, universal basic income, which would really automatically stabilize the economy. If you are giving people, say, $1,000 a week, just
Mhm.
basically to uh, well, in this case, the shelter in place, right? You could be giving us 1,000 a week to stay home. You know,
Mhm.
uh, so I think Sanders would have at least made a few changes
Hey, my name is Janet, and can you get out of the office? Where's your ankles hurt?
I'll be right there, Miha. Okay. Sorry. Um, I forgot what the hell I was saying. Sanders would at least represent a lesser evil, and he would have. He could have done some things. Maybe if nothing else, would have saved some lives. I would definitely have voted for him. I wouldn't be under the illusion that he was going to then change things from the inside, but I would say just um, in a sinking ship, um, we might sink with a little more dignity. I guess I'd put it that way. I would have voted for Sanders.
I like that. Yeah, no, I think it went overboard, and they were projecting onto things onto
Yeah.
him that simply were not true.
Yeah.
It really seemed like it was like war with a dental plan, right? And I understand.
Yeah.
I get it. I get it. I mean, like, we don't have the things other imperialist countries have, and that's that's upsetting, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I'm joking, but I'm serious too. I would have thought that if he could have got some medical care, improved medical care,
Yeah.
cut the student debt somewhat, it would have alleviated some things. And Biden's not going to do that. Obviously, Trump isn't going to do that.
Yeah.
I really see no difference in the two parties. It really, you have the Trump derangement syndrome, in the sense of he's an uninformed asshole, but he does the same kind of shit the other guys that Obama did, the stuff that Clinton would have done, that Biden would do.
Yeah. Yeah. I think people forget that it's actually Bill Clinton who built the first wall. And it was Obama who expanded ICE to become.
Yep.
Exactly. In fact, it was Obama who appointed Tom Homan, who is the director of ICE, who has been the director of ICE during this horrible. I'm not gonna say that Trump didn't escalate certain things, and he certainly rhetorically created a situation of just psychic terror. That was certainly more intense than what preceded him. I mean, obviously that's true, but it was Tom Homan, who is the director of ICE, was appointed by Barack Obama. So this is definitely a bipartisan thing. We got some more questions here. It says, what prevents, this comes from Kamul, he says, what prevents non-duopoly parties from running local candidates that can more likely and often break through and be elected? It seems like it would be fundraising.
I would say fundraising is a major thing, but also I think, in a sense, the mentality which causes people to end up voting Democrat, thinking, well, we can't win anyway. And just a second. Sorry, I was going to say, for instance, Kat Brooks, again here in Oakland, she got about 25% of the vote. She had a radical platform that was well thought out, and but it seems like at the end, people just thought, well, she can't really win, so they swung to the other side. But fundraising is a big part of it too, because if you can get TV time. But when you think about it, Sanders had a lot of enthusiastic people out there too. Kat here had a lot of enthusiastic people. So it's definitely something we should be doing, because we really can have an effect at the local level. A city council person or supervisor person is in San Francisco, they can get some work done. They can honestly work towards defunding the pigs. They can do a lot. But I would say, fundraising is definitely a big part of it.
Yeah. Another thing is, what are these? It's kind of a rhetorical question, I think, but maybe you have the insight. What are the two parties doing behind our back under the cover of this pandemic?
Well, the fact they both conspire against Medicare for all is a major thing, but also uh, you know, it's not all Trump. Uh, both support big pharma. Uh, they're definitely in bed together.
Yeah. What I've noticed is the war effort,
Yeah,
the global war effort rages on despite the fact that we're supposedly in this global pandemic. You have a situation where they're ramping up sanctions against Iran, ramping up sanctions against Nicaragua, ramping sanctions against Venezuela, threatening physical war with Venezuela with the warships. You got a situation where like you got Navy commanders not wanting to go to sea because they don't want to die.
yeah, for real. Yeah, that's an excellent point. I mean, I can imagine if there was some type of expeditionary force, right, sending them into combat or into some type of occupation. That's going to spread throughout the ship, and you have a battalion landing, and then half of them are overcome with COVID-19 and dying before they even got into combat. So, yeah, and the soldiers would be terrified knowing about that. It's the idea of that right now, especially at this time when Iran is suffering, Venezuela is suffering, and they're still rattling their sabers. It just shows how I would guess Trump is thinking that the traditional way of Americans unite behind their president in the times of war. Maybe he thinks that'll work for him now and distract from COVID-19.
Yeah, yeah, maybe. And Bill Clinton did it, right?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, true.
few others as well. All right. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to
Of
talk about.
course,
Um,
I got to
is
get
there?
back to the grandbaby.
I'm going to let you get back. But is there anything you want everyone to know? Anything they should follow? What they're up to? What you're up to? Anything you want to promote right now?
I just say stay home if you can. And if we had a universal basic income, this entire COVID-19 thing would be we'd be able to deal with much better because we would be paying our bills and we should be doing what Maduro is doing, right? He just I think has a 6-month moratorium on rent, and they're paying everybody, So we ought to be doing what that so-called communist dictator is doing.
Last question.
Yeah.
Why is it that a market system cannot provide the goods and necessities people need in the middle of a global pandemic?
I guess because it's profit driven. When you think about it, our hospitals are profit driven, and they closed hella hospitals. I mean, over the last several years that weren't making a profit. And a lot of these are in rural areas. Rural areas are being hit really hard. Especially when you look at like the Navajo Nation. So I would say one thing is just the profit factor. If
Yeah.
if they were geared towards these Medicare for all, and these hospitals were there, not trying to make money, but trying to serve people, I think that would have, who knows, people might have came out to get treated initially, in larger numbers, and maybe it would be more manageable now.
Completely agree.
Yeah.
Well, Al, I thank you for your time, and we'll be talking soon.
Take care, Matt.
Stay safe.
Bye-bye.
Bye.